Hello, Connecticut, and welcome to the Paid Leave Podcast. The title basically says it all. I'm Nancy Barrow, and I will be delving into this new state program and how it can help you and your family. This podcast will give you information you should know about Connecticut paid leave and maybe just a little bit more. Connecticut paid leave brings peace of mind to your home, family, and workplace. Welcome to the Paid Leave Podcast. Hi, and welcome to another edition of this podcast. I'm Nancy Barrow, your host and the engagement manager of Connecticut Paid Leave. And today it's all about women in politics, something I definitely think we need more of, in my opinion. I want to welcome my esteemed guest, the woman who holds the number 2 title in the executive branch, Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysiewicz. How are you?
Well, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me as we celebrate Women's History Month. And as we celebrate going into the 3rd month of paid family medical leave.
Yeah, I know you've been a really big proponent of it. It's really gone so well. And I know that we've talked to Massachusetts and we talked to Washington State because I know we were trying to figure out what can we do so it works well and goes smoothly, and it really has.
It was on time, under budget, and people are filing claims, as of the 1st of March, 21,839 claims had been filed. So
it's so great.
People who are having babies, almost 4,000 families having babies, people taking time for bonding with their new baby, employees who've had an injury or gotten sick are taking care of themselves. So 2,500 people have left to care for their parents. It's a really important thing. And, I've had 3 babies that would have paid family medical leave, could have come in handy then.
Yeah, I bet.
I've had 2 sick parents, that had extended illnesses. So many families can tell you the same stories. And that's why I think so many people were excited to be able to take advantage of it. And because our law is so broadly written, there's opportunities for gay couples to welcome a child, for instance. And there are other programs out there that don't have kind of that broad definition of what a family is. So we should be proud of what we have here. I always say that we have the best law, bar none, of any state in the country. And I think of it as something that really spans from the beginning of life to the end of life. And I think in addition to paid family medical leave, I think another really important piece that we still don't have in our country and in our state is universal child care. That's my next fight.
That's your next one. Great. That was going to be one of my questions. But let me ask you this. It's speculative, but do you think that we'll get a national program for paid family and medical leave?
I sure hope we do. And here's the thing. One thing I know is that the country watches Connecticut because we've done things like, I'll give you an example. In the early 90s, women were being sent home the same day they had a mastectomy, right?
Yeah.
And there were so many complications that women had. Infections, terrible pain. And I remember Dr. Kristen Zarfos coming to me because I was in the legislature saying, Susan, we got to do something about that. And so we did the first state law banning drive-through mastectomies. And then it took another couple of years, but Roselle DeLauro was able to bring forward legislation that banned them at the national level. So I feel like we've got some states and we have the best laws. I say, I'm going to say it again because I'm so proud of it. It's the most progressive, the broadest definition of families. We have them, I think, a better handle on the situations where people may need it. So I am hopeful that the federal government will copy our law. And what's nice is, the states will be laboratories, right? And
yeah, they will.
The more states that have it, the more pressure there will be on the federal government, because honestly, I feel like if you want to bring young people to Connecticut, and people are always talking about, well, there's a brain drain. Young people don't want to stay in Connecticut. Well, we have a $15 an hour minimum wage. We have a paid family medical leave act where young people are responsible for more than half of the claims that were made. And I think that is a great argument for why people should come to Connecticut. I mean, there's so many really great aspects. It's a selling point to bring any person to Connecticut. If you want to see more women in leadership at every level, whether it's in the corporate world, whether it's in the nonprofit world, whether it's in government, you need this. I think that this program is very important to women and families succeeding. Because I always say, when women are succeeding economically, then our state and our country are more productive. When more women are working, families are elevated.
There is a huge need. And you're talking about women, and it is Women's History Month. Wealth disparity and job disparity is something we need to talk to, because white women make 82 cents on a man's dollar and Black and Hispanic women make less.
Right.
What are we doing in the state to break the glass ceiling? And do you think that's going to happen?
I sure hope so, because it's unacceptable that white women are making 83 cents, Black women 59 cents, and Latina women 48 cents. I mean, it is just so appalling. So paid family helps close the gap, because a lot of women who are in, let's say, the professions, they are the ones that are most likely to drop out of a high-paying career for maternity leave, and now they don't have to choose. And women who may not be in a professional position won't have to choose. And so I think that is really important. We've made some progress in the state legislature, which says that you don't have to disclose what your last salary was, because that tends to institutionalize discrimination. Those are good steps, but a huge step is to get more women involved in STEM fields and advanced manufacturing. And those are areas where women excel, but there are areas where women are underrepresented. So in STEM fields, right, science, technology, engineering, math, women only hold 25% of the positions in those areas, right? And those are the highest paying jobs.
And you also have the Paradigm for Parity. Tell me what that is about.
Well, thank you for asking. And this is about women in leadership. And we have a deficit of women leaders.
We sure do.
In our legislature, less than 30% of our legislators are women. How can that be? I mean,
how
it hasn't
can that be?
improved much since I was in the legislature in the 1990s. What's up with that? In Congress, 27% of Congress members and U.S. senators are women. Governors, there are less than 10 female governors across our country. Fortune 500 CEOs, 8% are women. So the question is, how do you raise more women leaders? How do we find more women in leadership? I always say women in business and women in government can help each other, because if we're used to seeing women governors and women U.S. senators and women CEOs, we're more likely than to have businesses with women leaders and vice versa. And so Paradigm for Parity says that by 2030, our Fortune 500 company will have half of our board of directors be women and half of our C-suite officers, our top corporate officers, will be women. In 2020, the governor and I had a press conference and we announced 10 companies that had signed the pledge. A couple of them had done it on their own, and then I recruited the other 8.
Oh, good for you.
The first company that did it was Otis, because one of their women felt very, very strongly that they should do that. Good for her. And then I went out and recruited CVS, Aetna, Eversource, Synchrony Bank. There's a whole list. And this represents hundreds of thousands of employees. And it's powerful because it's not just that the companies commit at some point in the future to have more women leaders, but they commit to mentoring the entry-level women and sponsoring them and making sure that they can succeed.
When young girls see women in those positions of power, they think that they can do that, and that's the motivation for them.
Absolutely. And so we will be announcing another significant group of companies that will be joining, representing thousands and thousands of more workers in Connecticut, and you'll recognize all the names. It's
great.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
It's good work. I mean, it's kind of tragic that we have to have this, but we do have to have this.
Here's the thing, though. I think that post-COVID, people are starting to get that equity, diversity, and inclusion is really important. But here's the big reason why every company should do this. You make more money. All the research shows, right? It's better for your shareholders. Why is that? Because you have diverse people at the table. And if you don't have any women or people of color at the table, you're missing more than half the population.
And what does that say about your company?
Right.
So what does Women's History Month mean to you?
Women's History is about reminding people who our trailblazing women were, because we have so many in our state, like Ella Grasso.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you about Ella Grasso because she's, you did the whole biography on the first female governor.
Well, and people may not realize that in 1974, when she got elected, she was the first female governor to be elected in her own right in the whole country. And that was a big story in our country. So she was on the cover of Time magazine and The Economist, but it was a big deal all over the world. And in Italy, you would have thought she just got elected prime minister or something. It was huge. It was a really big deal. It's a time to remember people like Ella Grasso, but just remarkable what she did. And we see her legacy to this day because she was a champion of the freedom of information law. So she believed in transparency and accountability of government.
Do you think we'll ever see a female president in our lifetime?
Oh my goodness, I sure hope so. And I was a huge supporter of Hillary Clinton. Mm-hmm. And I was rooting for all of the women that were running for president last go around. Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar, Kamala Harris. And I'm so glad that Kamala is vice president. We have so much more work to do.
Any aspirations of running for president?
That I tell you, that hurts my brain. I think we have so much to do here in Connecticut, and I really do not like the highly partisan nature that we see in Washington. And fortunately, and we see it in Connecticut too. I was just at a press conference this morning with a Democratic mayor and and a Republican council person. Both were talking about issues of equity. And I thought, oof, this is a good place. If only in the legislature this conversation happened more frequently.
And the national level too, you're right.
Oh my goodness. I've talked to people who've run for president and I say, what's it like running for president? And they'll say it's like running for governor in 10 states at once. Yeah. But I think I think we've had some incredibly qualified women running for president. I mean, think about it on the Democratic side last time where I was paying most attention, but to have a group of United States senators running for president is really cool.
Well, your mom was a pretty cool person too, and did she know Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
My mom knew Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and so my mom was the child of Greek immigrants and she grew up in Enfield. And my grandfather was a remarkable man. He had a 5th grade education in Greece, and he came to this country. And he actually, when he got here in the early 1900s, was one of the thousands of people digging the Holland Tunnel.
Wow.
Came through Ellis Island, he helped dig the Holland Tunnel. And so what's very cool is my mother went to law school. She was one of just 2 women that graduated from UConn Law School in the early 1950s. One of my aunts became a CPA. Another one got her MBA and was a college professor. Another was the head of a high school business department. And my other aunt was a law librarian. Both my mom and Ruth Bader Ginsburg graduated from law school. They did very well academically, right?
Yep.
My mom wasn't pregnant when she graduated, but Ruth Bader Ginsburg was married and she's out here pregnant. So of course she wasn't going to get a job because there was the whole thing about being discriminated against if
right.
pregnant, which went on through those 70s, even beyond that. And so my mom, when she graduated, she was an assistant prosecutor. She couldn't get a job at a private law firm either. And then UConn Law School asked her to come in and be a professor, be a teacher. And she became the first tenured female law professor at the University of Connecticut. And because she did that, and there were very few other women who were teaching law, she met Ruth Bader Ginsburg because Ruth couldn't, even though she was at the top of her class at a very good New York law school, she couldn't get a job at a firm. So she started teaching law. And they would meet each other at American Bar Association meetings and they stood out, right?
Yeah, right. In that time, of course.
Anyway, my mother said to me, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she's going to be a Supreme Court justice someday. You watch. And I'm like, Mom, she's been to our backyard for barbecues. There's no way she's going to be in the Supreme Court. And my mom was so right because Bill Clinton appointed her.
I think she's like the most beloved, the notorious RBG. I mean, really, that's an inspiration too. Was she one of your inspirations as well?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. So I've been very lucky to be around a lot of really remarkable women.
And now you're on the Governor's Council on Women and Girls. Tell me what that means to you.
So when we were transitioning from our campaign to taking office, we spent the month of November and December after we got elected saying, okay, what are our priorities and how are we going to make the biggest impact? What are the things that we really want to do? And we had one committee that was looking at women's issues, and they said, hey, President Obama had a women's cabinet and the state of New York has a women's cabinet. We should do that. And so we did something that's on the order of both. So every one of our cabinet secretaries, so our commissioners, there are about 30 of them, are part of our council. And we meet quarterly and we talk about policies that we can support and things we can do on an administrative or a legislative level to advance women and girls. And so, we fortunately, right after our first term, paid family medical leave, which is a big policy that we ran on, got passed, and raising the minimum wage was one of those policies. But here's an example of one thing that we supported in the legislature, and that was allowing candidates, whether they're male or female, who use public financing to use funds to pay for babysitters.
And childcare is so important.
Oh my goodness. And the thing is, at the federal level, Jahana Hayes, as a congresswoman, was able to pay for childcare with federal campaign funds. And we said, what? Why? This is crazy. Of course, this should happen. And we actually had to pass a law because Caitlin Pereira, a candidate from Fairfield who tried, was denied. And so I told her, okay, Caitlin, we're going to put in a bill. This is ridiculous.
Right.
And, other states across the country allow this. And it took us until last year to get that bill passed.
Where do you find your inspiration and where do you refill your cup? Because you're so busy. We were just talking before we started the podcast about how busy you are tomorrow. Your day tomorrow is so busy. Do you meditate? Do you do yoga? What is it that refills your cup?
So my husband and I like to walk. So we try to walk 5 miles every day. And a lot of times it's very late at night, and I'm sure our neighbors think we're nuts, but that's whenever we can fit it in, we do. Because I think I grew up on a farm, so I am used to having a lot of physical activity. And for a long time, we raised German Shepherds, and unless you take them out for long walks, they will tear your house up. So that was part of it, and when it gets warmer out, we love having a vegetable garden, so that's kind of fun. So yeah.
Your daughter went on social media not too long ago and said you were her inspiration because in politics you raised 3 kids, you were always busy, and she saw you helping people. Did you see that? I mean, did you see when she posted that? I remember when she posted and also said, and how is she home for dinner every night? Yeah, that's what she...
Yeah, no, that was really important to me because, it's hard to balance all that, right?
Yeah, it is.
To balance it all. And everybody does it in their own way. I think when you have a family, they give you inspiration for the best public policies, right? Because, when you see yourself and other women trying to juggle work and childcare and raising your family, you really try to focus on the things that you think are going to help people. And I really think things like paid family leave, universal child care are so important. And so I'll be continuing to fight for those things.
Good luck on your reelection.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And oh my goodness, there's a lot of state business to do between now and then. And I can't even believe that 3.25 years have gone by
so fast.
Pandemic in there. So we've all kind of lost track, right?
You're the chair of the Connecticut State Employees Campaign for Charitable Giving, chair of the Finance Committee. That gives me a headache even thinking about the finance aspect of things. And you're president of the Connecticut State Senate. And I know you did the census. And did I miss any committees that you're on?
Oh, my goodness. That's a lot. And then there's the committee. Yeah, I lead the committee to end the achievement gap. So another small problem.
Oh, you're such a busy person. But thank you so much for taking time out and talking to me on the podcast.
Such a pleasure. It was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
You're so great. Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysiewicz, you're just really amazing. And let's break that glass ceiling. And maybe a law student will hear you speak and they'll do a biography on you.
I don't know. I just hope there's a lot of women lawyers, or future women lawyers that are listening, because there's still a lot of discrimination and inequities to fight. So thank you.
And if they want to follow you on your socials, it's LG Susan B on Instagram and Twitter. And on Facebook, it's just Susan Bysiewicz. It's such a pleasure.
You don't have to spell Bysiewicz to get on the Twitter feed. Thank you.
It's such a pleasure speaking with you. You are just really amazing. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
All righty. If you would like more information about Connecticut paid leave and how to apply for benefits, please visit our website at ctpaidleave.org. This has been another edition of the Paid Leave Podcast. Please like and subscribe so you'll be notified about new podcasts that become available. Connecticut Paid Leave is a public act with a personal purpose. I'm Nancy Barrow, and thanks for listening.